My question was, what is a descriptive or narrative grading system, and what are the advantages and limitations compared to our more traditional letter grading system? I put the two different pictures up just because I feel like the one, although it's still your options, it more shows an evaluation side, whereas this is just you get a paperback with a grade and maybe you don't know why you got that grade. So this just kind of goes through different criticisms. This was the first little article I read, this one here. It is a little bit more confusing and unclear. It talks about different solutions and advantages. So I want to focus on the second little section I read. And I basically took this just from the paper. But what is the narrative evaluation system? Typically, it is a grade when students' performance is described in a minimum of one paragraph, describing what was done well or poorly instead of just 4 out of 5. It will summarize students' test scores and can comment on how a student is working up to their potential. And it might also comment on writing and contributions to class discussions instead of just the specific assignment. It's kind of more of a whole, which makes me think of the rubrics we talked about a while ago. So it's definitely more of a holistic look at an entire assignment, not just an individual part of it. Kind of like the holistic rubric we talked about a while ago. Some of the advantages are it's seen as a symbol to the school's commitment to the whole, and not just necessarily the whole child, but the whole school, the whole assignment, not just individual. It definitely resists a model of post-secondary education, of churning students out into individual piles. It's more detailed and specific to individuals. Captures the finer details of a student's performance, and it reduces anxiety over GPA, which, I know I have problems with consistently. It also enables students to take risks more. I think of it a lot with the growth mindset discussion we just did. Definitely makes me think of that. And through evaluations, professors can model and encourage students to think more complexly and go beyond, help students progress at the same levels. Even if one student's at one level and another's at another, they can still progress the same amount. However, there are definitely disadvantages. It might attract slackers because there's not a specific grade attached. Absence of letter grades on transcripts are a problem. The school may seem as non-rigorous or hippish, and it's very intensive for teachers to write as well as readers. I know I'm a TA, and sometimes I wonder if the feedback I give on papers is even being read by students. And sciences especially, it's still going to have a numerical. You're still going to have your test questions, and you're still going to be able to say, well, you got 19 out of your 20 questions right. So it's still going to have that numerical data that you have to find a different way to grade that. And just bulky transcripts that employers are not going to look for. There's advantages, obviously, in the letter grading system, kind of just the opposites. I'll let you guys look at those. I'm sure we can think of our own advantages and disadvantages. Advantages being the opposite, helping with GPA and evaluating throughout the schools, and disadvantages, anxiety over GPA. Some big ideas that I just want to quickly go over that I found interesting was students not go to school to get grades, which is so true. I know that there's been moments when I've been like, wow, all I was focused on was my grade and not the learning. I've been like, I'm going to focus on my learning, and I think I do so great, and I'm so proud of myself. And then I end up with a worse grade, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really make sense. Grades don't necessarily provide the right kind of motivation for learning. When I first read that, I was like, I don't agree. Grades give me a ton of motivation, but definitely not motivation for learning. Grades definitely don't give you motivation to learn. There are many ways to assess learning. Different kinds of learning should be assessed in different ways. I wholeheartedly agree. But at the same time, assessment is unavoidable, and that is okay. That's totally fine. So I only went through a bit of this. There's a lot up at the top. that is just a little bit more specific, more quotey. I like the more specific and bulleted list a little bit better. But those are the advantages and disadvantages between the descriptive or narrative grading system versus the letter grading system.